Good afternoon. Welcome into this Q30 News special edition report on the 2018 Student Government Association elections. My name is MJ Baird. It is Wednesday, just after 1 o'clock, and it is official. The 2018 SGA results have come out. But first, a quick timeline. Last Wednesday, polls open at midnight, close at 8 p.m. As of 8:30, still no results have been posted. SGA's Vice President for Public Relations, Victoria Johnson, told Q30 that there was a grievance filed and that the appeal process had been begun. We get to Thursday. Right here on Q30, we talked to a couple of the candidates as well as a representative from the election committee. Still no answers yet. And here we are on Monday. We finally have the answers, and here we are to talk about them. Victoria Johnson, PR, Vice President for PR, is on my far left, and Jacqueline Schmiedel, SGA Vice President and Election Committee Chair, to my near left. Ladies, first of all, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
So, Victoria, we'll start with you as PR. Just catch our viewers up to date. What's the official statement right now in this SGA election?
So the official statement is basically the election results. The committee reviewed the appeal and, excuse me, I don't really have voice, and they decided that they looked at all the scenarios and everything like that, and they decided that the election results will stay as is. So, you know, Ryan Hicks is our president, Luca Hearn is our vice president, and John Killa is our vice president for finance.
Victoria, thank you. Of course, those were the three positions that were in question coming into, or ever since the election closed. It was SGA President, Vice President, and VP for Finance. As you had just heard from Victoria, those positions are now full. Jacqueline, we'll turn to you a little bit as the Election Committee Chair. I mean, you were in on all these meetings, from the grievance to the appeal to now. So we'll start a little bit chronologically if we can. First off, the polls closed, but right before, or I shouldn't say right before, but before then, a grievance is filed. On what grounds was that grievance filed?
Right. So there was a post made in a Facebook group, and essentially it was just saying, hey, vote for these candidates, and once you're done, comment done, and we're good to go. However, the context of the page led some voters to believe that they would be receiving a prize if they voted in a specific way. So the election committee wasn't really willing to turn a blind eye to potential bribing and swayed voting. So it's something that we decided to look further into.
And of course, bribing goes against SGA committee or SGA campaign rules, of course. So the grievance is, of course, in regards to that. Is that correct?
Kind of. We don't exactly have a line that specifically states bribing as something that goes against our policy, but we do reinforce a fair and clean election, and bribing does not fall within that category.
And then moving a little bit further on to the appeal, what were the grounds for that appeal?
The appeal was filed under new evidence and a procedural error, so basically the two things in which you can file an appeal under, and both of those existed. So from there we had to grant the appeal, and we heard them out from there on.
So is it fair to say the original decision by the election committee was different than the decision that was made by the appeal?
Yes, the election committee does want to be open that our original decision was to have a rerun. We felt that that was the best way to have a free and clean election. So ultimately we decided that wasn't entirely necessary, but that was the original decision.
So if by rerun, of course, you mean revote, is that correct?
Correct, yep.
So if that was the original decision, the appeal, of course, overturns that, and so do you just reinstate the original results?
No, so the way the appeal works is they can either uphold the decision of the election committee or they can lessen it, but they can't worsen the situation. So what the appeal process was our advisor, Aaron Toomey, as well as one member of the election committee, went through every single vote that was casted during the time that that post was up on the Facebook page. They cross-referenced them with who had voted at the time and who was within the group. And from there, they decided there weren't enough votes cast by those people within that time to swing any sort of election. So with that in mind, we decided to keep the results as is.
So mathematically, it was determined that there was no, not that there was no, there was no influence, but there was not enough influence or visible influence to change the results.
Right.
Okay. Victoria, if we can, we'll just go back to you for a second. So do you think this kind of ordeal that happened in SGA this year, do you think this will kind of set a precedent moving forward on SGA?
So, I mean, it's been a long year for us, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think that this shows how dedicated we are to making sure that the election is fair. Aaron Toomey and Velvet Chestnut put hours and hours of work in this weekend to ensure that the election was fair. And we were ready to do a revote if that's kind of what was necessary. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of influence on student government, especially the executive board. Like, there's a lot of power that comes with that. And we wanted to make sure that that was whoever got elected was elected fairly and justly, and I think it just shows a lot of dedication that we were willing to either do a revote or, you know, Aaron Toomey put and Velvet Chestnut put in, when I tell you like hours, I mean like over 5 hours of their weekend just to making sure that the election results were not changed.
When we talked to the candidates last week, they said they just wanted a fair process, not only for them, but for the student body. So that does sound like what occurred here. So now moving on a little bit, Jacqueline, we'll come back to you. The climate of SGA. Obviously, some people support one candidate, others support the other. How do you think something like this is going to affect, or will it affect, the SGA climate moving forward?
I wouldn't say it's going to affect it much. Every year, there's a little bit of tension within SGA, considering everyone gets behind one candidate or the other. But especially because the election committee was so thorough in everything that we did, there's really no room for contention or room to doubt the results of the election. They won fair, clean. It happened. So from there on, the Student Government Association is usually pretty good about moving on from there.
And so, as we said, the official results, we talked a lot about Ryan, but the two other positions should not be discounted either. So just to go back to one thing real quick, you mentioned they did the math on the president votes. Was that the same situation on the VP and the VP for finance?
Right. Those margins were a lot wider than the president votes, so they didn't have to go in as much depth.
Yep.
There weren't enough votes casted within that time period in general to overturn that, so they didn't look as closely there. But with the president, they definitely did.
So speaking, more directly to the root of the issue, which it sounds to me like is a Facebook post. Obviously, whoever files a grievance feels that this is against the campaign rules, and that's within their right via the Student Government Association bylaws. So my question to you is, with a post in a Facebook group, I mean, I'm a member of a lot of them here at Quinnipiac. They're galore. They support whoever candidate they would like. Is there anything wrong with posting in a Facebook group, but perhaps a different one?
No, definitely not. We actually encourage most of our candidates to take advantage of the Facebook groups, seeing as we can't use Quinnipiac-sponsored social media or any kind of Quinnipiac-sponsored communication in general. So the Facebook groups have always been incredibly instrumental. It's just the context of this Facebook group and the posts that were made in the same format in the past led us to believe that this wasn't a fair post.
And come full circle now, it's been 6 days, but do you guys feel really the truth has been found?
I do, yep. I'm happy with the results. I feel content. I feel like we did the best that we could in the situation that was really unprecedented, so I'm happy with what happened.
And as for the student body as a whole, who now gets to look to Ryan as their SGA president, Luke as their vice president, and John as their VP for finance, what can you say to them in terms of you guys did your due diligence and made the right decision?
Yeah, I really just want to emphasize that there's no reason to question their new positions. They all deserve it. They all worked hard. They're going to be great in everything that they do. I know that the work that they've put into SGA in the past definitely speaks in their favor. And in all honesty, I know that there could be some questions afterwards as to whether or not this was a clean election, but I really want to assure everyone that the election committee did everything that they can to ensure the results were valid.
And Victoria, we'll come back to you just because you will be in your position again next year. So with the executive board filed out, what are your thoughts for the end of this year and then the transition into next year?
I'm excited. It's always, transitioning is always something that kind of takes a little bit of time, especially with the vice president for finance. It's a lot to learn in like a small period of time. I think it's great that Ryan Hicks is going to be here next year to kind of walk John Killer through it and answer his questions when, in the past, George Cordy graduated and he left, so this year it can be tough sometimes. But I think I'm excited. I'm excited for a new executive board. I think it's nice that we still have some people on it that were on last year, so kind of transitioning into it might be a little easier.
All right, ladies, thank you so much for your time today. Jacqueline, for all the election committee information, and Victoria, thank you for being so transparent with the media during this entire process. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we will speak with the newly elected SGA president, Ryan Hicks. Stay with us. Welcome back. Thank you for sticking with us. Right now, I'm joined with the new SGA president, Ryan Hicks. And Ryan, you've recently been named the SGA president. I think this is your first interview. Is that correct?
This is my first interview, yeah.
So the stakes are high.
Yeah, we'll see how I do.
All right, Ryan. So first question. obviously, first of all, congratulations on the position.
Thank you very much.
You've now been named. It was 6 days. It took a while. But, how are you feeling right now?
I feel fantastic. I'm happy that the election committee did their due diligence to ensure that the election was fair. I'm honored to have supported the student body. I'm honored to be able to represent the entire student body and be able to advocate for them. There's a lot of emotions. It hasn't quite sunk in yet, but it's just an incredible feeling for sure.
Before we get into how you're going to advocate and what you're going to do, let's talk a little bit about the election.
Sure.
Because, of course, it was a bit unprecedented in SGA recent history.
Sure.
So we just heard from Jacqueline and Victoria. They said, Facebook post was the root of this issue.
Yeah.
So, what did you see in that Facebook post? Did you see it? And what are your reactions to it?
So the Facebook post was pretty clean and simple. It just said to vote for the candidates. It was then misinterpreted based on some people, and that's kind of how the grievance got filed, and the process went from there. The election process and the election committee did their job to ensure that there was no foul play involved, and from there we got our results. So I'm confident with the work that they did to confirm that this was a fair election.
So obviously, as Jacqueline had said, there's a lot of time and effort put into this. In fact, going through and manually counting votes at one point during a time span. I haven't heard of that happening before, but of course, a bit unprecedented, as I had said before. So do you get nervous at all? Going and counting votes, perhaps thinking about taking them away, a revote? What were you thinking?
I was just, at that point, it was kind of out of my hands. I did everything that I could do. I went through the appeal process. I had full faith that what they were going to do was right and they were going to do the correct thing. So sure, it was a little nerve-wracking to not know who won and know that there was a winner at the end of Wednesday, and we weren't sure how that was going to happen. But over the weekend, I had full faith in that committee, and I knew that it was out of my hands, and they were going to do everything that they could do. So I felt good over the weekend.
As you had said, you went through the appeal process. Can you take our viewers through that? What was that process like?
Yeah, sure. So as Jacqueline mentioned, there was a grievance filed. Their original decision was they wanted to do a revote. So we wrote an appeal pretty much saying that we felt that there were a couple errors. We found some new evidence. We just wanted it to be looked at again before we had to do a revote, because I know that none of the candidates wanted to go through election day. It's an incredibly long day. It's tolling on your body for sure. So we were going to try to avoid that as much as we could. So we wrote an appeal. They believed that we had enough evidence to hear that appeal. So then each individual had a meeting with Aaron Toomey, our advisor, and the election committee member. And then we got an email this morning saying that our appeal overturned the ruling, the original ruling, and that the results would be certified. And from there I found out that I was the winner.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
All right, so now we'll move into a little bit of the advocacy that we talked about before. I know this isn't the presidential election, but what's in store for your first 100 days, Ryan?
We'll see. Right now it's getting ready, getting transitioned in. So obviously the president, Ryan Lynch, right now has created a lot of incredible relationships with the administration. So my goal now is to start to be able to transition those relationships down and start to build my own personal relationship with the administration if I haven't been able to in the past. And then it's also transitioning John Killa into be the next Vice President for Finance. So I'm looking forward to a lot of just getting an understanding of what the position is going to entail and see what I'm going to be able to do to end out this year on the right foot.
And I've used the word unprecedented multiple times, but now we're really into unprecedented territory. Quinnipiac naming a new president. Judy Olian will be the president of the university starting next year. And you, as the SGA president, likely going to try to foster that relationship with her, I would assume. I
would not even say likely, 100%. I think that it would be foolish for the new executive board not to jump on this opportunity to meet a new president. I think it's an opportunity for us to really recenter Quinnipiac to the students, and hopefully we can create a fantastic relationship with Judy Olian to see some changes that are going to benefit the Quinnipiac community and the Quinnipiac students.
And when we talked to you last week, you said you were all about trusting the process the election committee had. You wanted it to be fair. Yep. Ultimately, do you think that was the decision? I do think that was the decision, and I can confidently say that if I had lost an election and it was a fair election, I would have been okay with that, and whatever decision they made, I would have been comfortable with that, because that was them doing their due diligence. I did not count votes all weekend. Right. They went through that process. I'm confident in the decision they made. I'm confident that it was a fair election. And of course, your opponent was Joe Yasso. He's going to serve on the SGA senior class cabinet now, I believe as a representative. Is that correct? That's correct. So you're leading all of SGA, not only just the seniors, but all the way down. So what kind of culture are you going to try to create in SGA next year? I want to create a culture that's based around a team. And I said this a little bit in the debates, but I want to refocus
the student government so that we're one group of people with the student body's agenda. So I hope that we can really get ourselves centered, get a team, be unified, create those relationships within our organization so that moving forward we can collaborate and we can work together and we can do what's best for the student body.
All right, and then one final question. You said it right there, the student body. They're who you're going to be representing next year. So I guess if I had to say this is your chance, first of all, you were elected by them. Now what can you do for them?
Hopefully I can bring change to this community, and hopefully I can bring change to the Student Government Association. I mentioned it a little bit last week.
Yep.
I'm hoping to update the Student Government Association so that we represent the students. I'm hoping that as a group we can represent the entire student body. I think now it's just we gotta hit the ground running. Like Victoria said, we have a couple returning executive board members. We have a couple new members.
Yep.
I think we have a great group and a great organization as a whole to really represent this student body as well as we can.
All right, Ryan, thank you so much, not only for your transparency with the media, but for being willing to speak with us during this hectic time. Yeah. And again, congratulations on your position.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, everyone, that's all the time we have here right now. Thank you so much for tuning in to this Q30 special report on the 2018 Student Government Association election. Again, the results are final. Ryan Hicks, your SGA president. SGA vice president is Luca Hearn, and SGA vice president for finance is John Killa. For Ryan Hicks, all the SGA candidates and the election committee members, all our members behind the scenes here at Q30, I'm MJ Baird. Thanks so much for tuning in, and have a great day.